What if I told you that the most decorated Navy SEAL in history started as an overweight, broken kid living in fear with zero athletic ability? What if I told you that this same man, David Goggins, once ran 100 miles in under 24 hours with no proper training on 2 stress-fractured legs? You'd probably say, that's impossible. But that's exactly the point. Most of us wake up every single day and we negotiate with our mind. We hit snooze. We skip the workout. We tell ourselves tomorrow. We accept the comfortable version of ourselves, and we call it being realistic. David Goggins would tell you, that's not being realistic. That's being a coward. Today, we're going deep inside one of the most raw, brutal, and transformational books ever written, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. This is not a feel-good audiobook. This is not a highlight reel. This is a full autopsy of what a human being is actually capable of when they refuse, completely and utterly refuse, to quit. Over the next minutes, I'm going to walk you through every key lesson, every chapter, every mindset principle Goggins shares. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will see your own suffering, your own limitations, your own excuses completely differently. Let's get uncomfortable. Let's get started. Before we dive in, let me give you a quick map of where we're going today, because this book is dense, and I want you to get every single drop of value from it. Here's what we're covering. First, Goggins' childhood. The abuse, the poverty, the trauma. You need to understand where he came from to truly understand what he became. Second, the concept of the accountability mirror, one of the most powerful self-development tools in this entire book. Third, the 40% rule. This one will permanently change how you think about your limits. Fourth, callousing your mind, what it means, how to actually do it. Fifth, the cookie jar method, Goggins' personal mental trick for pushing through pain. Sixth, the concept of taking souls, a competitive mindset unlike anything else you've read. Seventh, the governor in your brain, and how to silence it. And finally, we'll wrap up with what Goggins calls the most important conversation you'll ever have. There are also challenge questions Goggins puts at the end of each chapter. I'll share some of the most powerful ones, so you can actually use this book, not just listen to it. All right, no more setup. Let's go back to the beginning. Chapters 1 and 2, The Damaged Kid. David Goggins was not born into greatness. He was born into chaos. His father, Trunnis Goggins, owned a skating rink in Buffalo, New York, and behind the glamour of that skating rink was a man who beat his wife and terrorized his children. Goggins describes watching his father beat his mother. He describes being whipped with a belt so hard it left marks. He describes living in constant fear, not knowing if today was going to be a good day or a day that destroyed him. When his mother finally escaped with David and his brother, they fled to a small town in Indiana. No money, no support system, just survival. But here's what most people don't know. Moving didn't make things better immediately. David went to a school where he was one of the few black kids in a predominantly white town. He faced racism, he faced bullying, and because of all the stress, his hair started falling out in patches, a condition called alopecia areata. And on top of all that, he was failing school, not because he was stupid, but because the trauma had made it almost impossible to learn. He was faking his way through assignments, cheating on tests, just surviving day to day. Now, here's the educational moment I want you to sit with. When Goggins finally looked in the mirror at 24 years old, he was 300 pounds. He was working as a pest control worker, which he hated. He was eating chocolate chip cookies and drinking chocolate milkshakes at midnight. He describes this moment as looking at the reflection of a coward. But instead of blaming his father, instead of blaming the racism, instead of blaming any of the legitimate, real obstacles in his life, he did something almost radical. He took ownership. Not because life was fair, it wasn't, but because he realized that blame, even justified blame, is a prison, and he refused to stay imprisoned. Think about someone in your own life who went through real adversity. Maybe it was you. The instinct is to focus on what happened to us. Goggins flips the script. The question isn't what happened to me, it's what am I going to do about it? This is called a locus of control shift, and psychologists consistently find it's one of the strongest predictors of long-term success and resilience. Write down all the things you're not happy about in your life. Own them. Don't justify them. Just list them honestly. All right, here's where the book starts to give you tools. Real tools. The accountability mirror. Goggins describes a specific moment where he stood in front of his bathroom mirror and told himself the complete, unfiltered truth. Not the comfortable version, not the motivational poster version, the actual truth. He was out of shape. He was unintelligent by conventional metrics. He had no discipline. He was a people pleaser. He was afraid. He stuck Post-it notes on that mirror. Each note was a goal. Each note was a standard. And every single morning, he had to look those notes in the eye and answer, did I live up to this today? This is the accountability mirror. And the key principle is this. Most people never have a real, honest conversation with themselves. They soften the truth. They give themselves excuses. They tell themselves, I'm trying my best, when they know, deep down, they're not. Goggins says, the mirror never lies. You do. Now, here's something important. The accountability mirror isn't about self-hatred. It's not about tearing yourself down. It's about radical honesty. And radical honesty, paradoxically, is what actually builds real confidence. Because your confidence isn't built on a lie anymore. It's built on actual evidence of who you are and who you're becoming. Imagine a student who gets a C on a test and tells themselves, the teacher is bad, or the test was unfair. That might even be true. But the accountability mirror asks, did I study as hard as I could? Did I ask for help? Did I truly prepare? Honest answers change behavior. Blame changes nothing. This is also backed by research. Self-compassion combined with honest self-assessment leads to more goal achievement than either blind self-criticism or defensive self-protection alone. Try this tonight. Stand in front of a mirror for 5 minutes. Don't scroll your phone. Just look at yourself and ask, am I the person I want to be? What am I lying to myself about? Chapter 4, The 40% Rule, Your Real Limit. If there is one concept from this entire book that I want you to walk away with today, it's this one, the 40% rule. Here's what Goggins says. When your mind tells you that you're done, when you feel like you literally cannot go any further, you are only at 40% of your actual capacity. Let that land. When you feel completely exhausted, you have 60% left. When your legs are burning and your lungs are on fire and your brain is screaming, stop, you're not even halfway to what your body is capable of. Now, where does this come from? This isn't just philosophy. Goggins tested this theory by literally destroying himself in training. He ran ultra marathons on broken feet. He did 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours, breaking a world record, on hands that were blistered and bleeding. He completed Navy SEAL training 3 times on a body that doctors said was medically disqualified. He kept going, long past the point where every signal in his body said stop. And what he discovered is that the human body has a biological failsafe. Your brain shuts you down way before you're actually in danger. It's a protective mechanism. It was designed for survival. But in the modern world, it has become a governor, a limiter that prevents you from ever discovering what you're truly made of. Think of it this way. You've probably had the experience of being in a pool or a lake, and you're swimming and you start to feel tired and you think, I need to stop. I'm done. But then someone throws something in the water or there's a threat, and suddenly you have a burst of energy you didn't know was there. That's the 40% rule in action. The energy was always there. Your brain just wasn't releasing it. The challenge Goggins gives us is this. Next time your mind says stop, keep going. Just a little further. Then a little more. Do that consistently, and over time, you push the 40% threshold higher and higher. You recalibrate what done means. That's how you become superhuman. One conversation with your limits at a time.
Chapter 5. Cookie Jar. Callousing the Mind. Let me tell you about a moment during Goggins' first ultramarathon, a 100-mile race called the San Diego One Day, which he entered with essentially 0 training and 0 preparation, just to prove he could. By mile 70, his feet were destroyed. He had stress fractures in his feet. His kidneys were beginning to shut down. He was peeing blood. He had gained so much water weight that his legs looked like tree trunks. Any sane person quits there. Every doctor would say, stop. Goggins kept going. How? He reached into what he calls the cookie jar. The cookie jar is a mental archive of every hard thing you've ever done, every time you overcame something, every obstacle you conquered, every moment you doubted yourself and did it anyway. You store those memories, those wins, those proof points, and when things get impossibly hard, you reach in and pull one out. I've been here before. I survived that. I can survive this. This is not delusion. This is evidence-based self-belief. You're not telling yourself fake things. You're reminding yourself of real things you've actually done.
Now, this connects directly to a second concept, callousing the mind. You know what a callus is, right? When you do manual labor, when you use your hands every day, the skin thickens, it toughens, it becomes resistant to pain that used to hurt. Goggins argues the mind works exactly the same way. If you avoid discomfort, your mind stays soft, sensitive. Every obstacle feels catastrophic. Every setback feels like the end. But if you deliberately, consistently expose yourself to hard things, cold showers, hard workouts, difficult conversations, fasting, studying subjects you hate, your mind gets harder, more resilient. The same obstacles that used to destroy you start to feel manageable. This is why Goggins wakes up at 4 a.m. Not because the world requires it, but because doing the hard thing first, every single day, is a deposit into his mental callus. It's training. And every day you don't do the hard thing is a withdrawal. Neuroscientists call this process stress inoculation. Controlled, repeated exposure to manageable stressors strengthens the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate the amygdala's fear response. Navy SEALs actually go through formal stress inoculation training, but the principle is available to everyone. Cold showers, public speaking practice, hard workouts, these aren't just physical challenges. They're literally rewiring your brain to handle pressure better. Goggins just found the extreme end of this spectrum.
Chapter 6. Taking Souls, the Competitive Edge. This is one of the most fascinating concepts in the book, and honestly, the one most people dismiss because they misunderstand it. Taking souls. Goggins describes a moment during Hell Week, the infamous Navy SEAL training where candidates are kept awake for 5 days straight, constantly cold, wet, exhausted, and miserable, where the instructors were trying to break him. Instead of trying to just survive, he decided to perform. He started doing extra exercises. He started cheering on his classmates. He became the most enthusiastic person in the room. While everyone else was broken, he was thriving. On purpose. He was taking their souls. What does this mean? It means that in a situation where someone expects you to crumble, you show them, through your actions, not your words, that you cannot be broken. And there is something psychologically devastating about that to your opponent. It shifts power. It changes the energy in the room. But here's what Goggins makes clear. This is not about ego. This is not about humiliating people. This is about using competition and adversity as fuel. It's about deciding that the harder things get, the better you perform. Not as a reaction to the pressure, but as a choice you make in advance. You can apply this at work. You can apply it in school. When the pressure is highest, when everyone else is complaining, shrinking, falling apart, that's your moment. Not to gloat, but to rise. To put in the best work of your life precisely because the conditions are hardest. That's taking souls. And it's a complete reframe of how to handle adversity. Consider Michael Jordan, who is famously documented as performing his best in the highest pressure games. Or consider first responders who train specifically to become calm under pressure. Psychologists call this stress is enhancing mindset. Research by Stanford's Aaliyah Crum shows that people who view stress as performance enhancing actually outperform those who try to avoid or minimize stress. Goggins embodies this to an almost superhuman degree, but the mechanism is teachable. 7. The Governor. Silencing your brain. We touched on this earlier with the 40% rule, but let's go deeper, because Goggins has a specific name for the mechanism that holds most people back. He calls it the governor. In old-school engines, a governor was a device that prevented the engine from exceeding a certain speed, even if the engine had the power to go faster. It was a built-in limiter. Goggins says your mind has a governor too, and it was installed by your experiences, your environment, your childhood, your failures, the people who told you what you were and weren't capable of. Every time someone told you, that's impossible. Every time you failed and decided it meant you were a failure. Every time you quit and your brain logged that as your default behavior. All of that becomes your governor, the invisible ceiling on your performance. And the only way to remove it is to do the thing the governor says you can't do. Every time. Until the governor recalibrates. Goggins went from failing a third-grade reading test to writing a New York Times best-selling book. He went from being rejected from the Navy SEALs due to his weight to completing SEAL training and becoming one of the most decorated special operators in American military history. He went from 300 pounds to completing a 100-mile race. Every single one of those transitions required him to override the governor, again and again, in small moments and enormous ones. And what he wants you to understand is, your governor is not the truth about you. It's a story, an old, outdated story. And stories can be rewritten. Ask yourself right now, what is my governor telling me I can't do? Is that actually true? Or is it just the story I've told myself so many times I believe it?
Near the end of Can't Hurt Me, Goggins says something that I've thought about almost every day since I first heard it. He says, the most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And most people are losing that conversation every single day. You wake up and your mind says, you don't need to get up yet. And you agree. Your mind says, you can skip today. And you agree. Your mind says, you're not as capable as those other people. And you agree. Your mind says, you've done enough. And you agree. Every agreement is a vote for the weaker version of you. Goggins is not telling you to be miserable. He is not telling you to punish yourself. He's telling you that there is a version of you on the other side of discomfort that you have never met. And the only way to meet that person is to stop negotiating with the part of you that wants comfort at all costs. He talks about a concept he calls his true self, the version of himself that exists when everything fake has been burned away. No ego, no fear, no social performance, just raw capability and will. He believes every human being has this, not just special forces, not just elite athletes. You, in your life, in your work, in your relationships. But most people never find it because the path there is painful, and the comfortable path is always right there as an alternative. You're watching this video. You made it this far. That means something about you. It means the part of you that wants to grow, that wants to find out what you're actually capable of, it's alive. Don't negotiate with the part of you that wants comfort more than it wants growth. Have the harder conversation every morning with yourself.
All right, let's bring it home. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is not a comfortable book. It was not designed to make you feel good about where you are. It was designed to show you where you could be if you were willing to stop lying to yourself and start doing the hard work. Let's recap the big ideas we covered today. The accountability mirror. Radical honesty with yourself every single day. The 40% rule. When you think you're done, you're not even close. You have more. Callousing the mind. Discomfort is training. Seek it deliberately. The cookie jar. Your past victories are fuel. Keep them accessible. Taking souls. Your best performance happens under the most pressure. The governor. It's not the truth about you. It's a story. Rewrite it. The most important conversation. Stop losing it. Now, if this video gave you something, if even one of these concepts landed for you, I want to challenge you to do one thing differently tomorrow morning because of it. Just one. Not 10 things. Not a full life overhaul. One thing where you normally choose comfort and tomorrow you choose growth instead. That's how this starts. One choice, then another, then another.